Football podcast, joined as always by Clinton Boring. Week 9, Clinton, we have football on the television. It is a great night to be alive, unless your name is Kyle McCord. Sir, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty good, man. It's been another busy week. Going pretty quick, though. We are all ready to Thursday night football. Tomorrow's Friday. 1 week out from our trip, so that it feels kind of weird to have to go to work tomorrow. I got a cool hoodie here. We got the Joe Burr hoodie. My man Bob hooked me up with it. Probably the softest hoodie I've ever put on in my life. And I absolutely love it. So I'm digging it, Bob. I hope you're tuning into the show either tonight or tomorrow. And props to you for hooking me up. But Ryan, we got some intriguing games this week. I think overall for the entire week, there's no monster matchups like we've had these past 2 weeks. But I feel like these, again, are the kind of the weeks that get tricky, right? That you see a ranked team like an Oregon playing a team that they probably should own, or a Penn State heading into Wisconsin, or we got LSU heading into Kyle Field for a blackout. And those games can make for some really interesting pieces. How are you today?
I made the mistake of taking betting advice from somebody.
Not Dr. Larry.
Not Dr. Larry. Well, he sent me his parlay today, and he's like, Missouri, Oklahoma, lock it up. I'm like, first of all, have you watched Oklahoma play offense this year? It's pathetic. Secondly, Drew Pine is starting for Missouri, allegedly.
Yeah, I was going to say, Brady Cook is out. I would heavily take Alabama now.
But no, we have a student in our clinic, and he was talking about like short odds betting, where you find something that's like minus 500 really short odds, and you put $100 on it because you get $20 back. And it's like a short odds thing, right? So almost guaranteed to hit. I did that earlier this week. It was
and you didn't hit.
No, it was the over. I did an alt over in the UTEP and whoever they played game was like 37. I'm like, okay, there's no problem. This goes over. Scored like 24 points. I'm like, this is bullshit. So I did it again last night, and it went fine. And then tonight I did Syracuse plus 17, and Kyle McCord decided that he was going to throw 3 fucking interceptions in the first quarter. So thanks, Kyle McCord, you fucking asshole.
You can join Ohio State fans.
Also,
trashing him.
Also at Student Nate, who definitely does not listen to this podcast. Thanks.
Is he not a college football fan, or?
No, I just don't go telling everybody that I meet. Come listen to my podcast, bro.
Oh, I do. I threaten my patients. If you don't listen to it, I will bend your knee harder and you will hurt. I'm kidding. I don't do that.
Well, sometimes people's knees need to be bent. I've definitely threatened some people with that before. But they need it. Anyway, live on YouTube again tonight. If you're watching us live, you obviously know where to find that. If you're listening in your podcast feed, subscribe to that YouTube channel at ITPCFB. Maybe I will get around to putting together some videos from the Purdue weekend. Again, there wasn't a whole lot, but I've been busy this week, so I haven't gotten around to it. And if you're listening on the YouTube feed, find us in your podcast, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your shows. Make sure you're following, subscribe to the show so you can get notified as soon as one of these drops, going live 3 times a week. You probably know the drill by now, but if you're new around here, we go live on Sunday, Monday, and Thursday evenings at 9 p.m. Eastern for these shows. And it's really great when we have the football on it. If only it was a little bit better tonight.
Yeah.
And as always, you can find us on our Twitter feed at ITPCFB. That's where you can interact with us the best. Then we're going to post all these links out there anyway, so it's kind of one-stop shopping. Yada, yada, yada. Boom. Clinton. A very exciting
Ryan
this week. I don't know, man. This is just kind of a weird week because it's kind of one of those, like, there are a couple good matchups, especially Big Ten, right? I mean, we got obviously the big SEC matchup, but
Picks of the week.
It's one of those things that on paper we have some very good matchups. We have 2 ranked matchups. However, in both of those ranked matchups, the spreads are 2+ scores. We have Michigan State, normally prime viewing television. It's been relegated to the Big Ten network because both teams are terrible. We have Penn State against Wisconsin, but is this a Wisconsin team that may or may not be a paper tiger? Who knows? And then obviously the kicker is the 11 p.m. Eastern kickoff tomorrow night, Rutgers versus USC. It's a New York, LA weekend in Clinton. Oh, Jesus Christ. It's a New York, LA weekend in Los Angeles, Clinton. I almost said in Clinton. That doesn't sound like it'd be a good
you
time.
don't know what's inside of me right now. A bowl full of poo. That's what it is.
That's kind of disgusting. We got a World Series game tomorrow night in LA, and then down the street, Rutgers versus USC in the Coliseum. What a time to be alive. It's going to be a good time.
Yeah, I bet there's about not even a quarter of that stadium full. And I'm not talking about the World Series. I'm talking about USC, the Coliseum.
No, I don't. I think I tweeted it from my account. It seemed kind of mean to tweet from our podcast account, but not only did USC blow up the Pac-12 to lose to Maryland and Minnesota, but also to play a Friday night game against Rutgers in front of like 3,200 people.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Might be more Rutgers fans watching this game than there are USC.
Homie, there's a 0% chance they're all going to be asleep.
I know this East Coast guy will be certainly in bed, and if I were to stay up, I would rather stay up and watch Boise State and UNLV.
Not that I know. Quad box.
That is true.
At the time,
it would probably be a dual box tomorrow night, right?
Oh yeah, dual box.
I don't know if there'd be enough for quad.
Definitely a dual box. So where do you want to kind of start this? You want to start this one in Madison?
Let's start with jump around.
7:30 NBC primetime Penn State, a very, very prime look ahead area. 6.5-point favorites taking on the Badgers in Camp Randall Stadium. I am fascinated by this game, Clinton, for a couple of reasons, and I don't know that any of them are necessarily related to the teams on the field. Obviously, Penn State taking on Ohio State next week. You posted the question out on our Twitter. Who do you think is looking ahead their matchup this weekend more? And I don't actually know the answer to that, because I do agree with what you were kind of talking about with Rob this week, that coming out of a bye, Ohio State's been chomping at the bit now for the last 10 days to get back out there, prove themselves worthy of, still that top 5 ranking, get that bad taste out of their mouth.
McCord threw a pick 6. On a screen. On a screen. Threw a pick 6 on a screen.
Dude, this is all-time regression to the mean.
Listen, I don't want to kick a man when he's down, but everything inside of me, I love you, Jacob, wants me to text you right now about the discussion we were having with McCord last week. This dude is falling off the Empire.
This is
Empire State Building.
Like, as good as he's been through 6 games, I think he's undoing all of it right now.
Yes. All the good faith he had has been flushed down the toilet.
Oh my god.
Oh my god, homie. Well, you handed Pitt this game.
Maybe my overbet will hit at least. My Jesus, my god. Well, Clinton.
Back to Penn State, Wisconsin.
Yeah, man. But on the Wisconsin side of things are potentially looking up, right? You're 5-2 now, 3-game win streak. You've looked good for the majority of that. Maybe not as much last week against Northwestern, but I think the issue I have with Wisconsin in this one is this recent uptick has coincided with them playing more or less the dregs of the Big Ten, right? Like, the level of competition the last couple of weeks has not been good. And, good teams beat the crap out of bad teams. You cover the spread. We've talked about this ad nauseum. You can only play the team that's in front of you, but you're now playing a Penn State defense that is exceptional, that is going to get after you. And we're talking about a Wisconsin offense that, even as good as they have looked the last 3 weeks, they are still turnover prone. Braden Locke is still has a penchant to throw interceptions. And this is not a setting in which you can do that, right? You're going to have to take advantage of your possessions in this one. You cannot give this Penn State offense short fields, because that is going to be a very quick way to get down in this game. And I don't know that Wisconsin has the type of offense that can come back from a 2-score deficit early in this game.
I would also we talk about Wisconsin. I certainly agree. I don't know if they can come back, but flipping back to a few weeks ago, we've brought up each week how Penn State has tended to start slow. And if Penn State comes out and gets in a 14-0 hole, how much of a challenge that is going to be for them to dig out of. They are the better team. They are the more talented team. offense and defense. I think if you talked about this with Ohio State, Oregon, the top 4 units on the field. I think Penn State owns all 4 of those, offense and defense, and then Wisconsin would be 3-4. But Penn State, can you break the slow start trend? Their defense trending up, especially with the pass rush. They only have 14 sacks on the season, but the past few weeks, that's been getting better. Abdul Carter now has a 17.2% pressure rate, which is good for third best in the Big Ten. You already alluded to it. Locke seems to turn the ball over at least once a game. So get pressure on him, force him to turn the ball over. And that's something Wisconsin's offensive line is going to have to deal with. Speaking of their offensive line and trending improvements is the run game. Tawee, or how are we going with the name we say there?
I don't remember. I can't remember.
Mr. Walker is averaging 139 yards per game over his last 3 games, 6 TDs in those 3 games, 8 on the season. However, before we get too excited with that, the Penn State defense is only allowing 95 rush yards per game. I believe that's top 10 in the country. 3.2 yards per carry and only 3 rushing TDs on the season. So Wisconsin is taking their hottest piece and facing, I would say, the best piece of Penn State in their rush defense. Wisconsin is going to have to control time of possession in this game. And you got to score TDs. You can't take opportunities and kick field goals. If you kick field goals, you will lose. Small tidbits here. The all-time record, Penn State leads 11-9. The Badgers are 2-8 in the last 10 games against Penn State. That also felt weird. Penn State and Wisconsin's only played 20 times. Doesn't that feel weird?
Yeah, but that's an East versus West matchup.
Yeah.
In Penn State,
and then the fun one.
Penn State was independent for a while too, right? They're
Yeah.
not a long-standing Big Ten member.
Yep. The fun part here, though, guys, is to think about. Will history repeat itself? James Franklin is 5-7 when coming off a bye week in his career at Penn State. That is an under 500 record when you've had a week to prepare your team. You've had a week to prepare your team now with Ohio State looming, the biggest prove-it game of your entire season next week. You're walking into Madison, which is going to be crazy. We're going to be jumping around. Give me Wisconsin plus 6.5, but Penn State wins.
I think Penn State takes care of business and gets this done.
Nice.
You kind of touched on the reasons why defense and quarterback, and I think Penn State has the advantage in both of those realms. Drew Aller, say what you want about him as a big play guy, as an overall quarterback in kind of the pantheon of Big Ten quarterbacks, but he does well at taking care of the ball. We cannot say the same for Braden Locke. We have an opportunistic Penn State defense, a Penn State defense that can get after the quarterback and force him into mistakes. I think they probably get a couple picks in this one, and close game, right? I'm not sitting here saying that Penn State's going to blow them out of the water, but 10-point game, maybe Wisconsin has the ball late to make it a 1-score game. But I think Penn State's going to cover this one.
All right.
Cool.
So we differ in one. Do we know the difference between you and I and ATS right now? It was 9 games last week.
It's 8 games now. You were 3-7 last week. I was 4-6. We suck.
God, we both sucked.
We are atrocious.
That was pathetic.
You're at least 500 for the season. I am 8 games below 500.
Barf.
Starting off great this weekend, too, picking Syracuse tonight. Good for me. 3:30 CBS. One of 2 ranked matchups this weekend. Illinois fresh off a big win against Michigan last weekend, traveling west to take on the Ducks, who we saw in person last week. Oregon, as of today, a 22-point favorite in this one. Clinton, I don't know what to think of this game because I can see a number of different outcomes here. I don't know if one of those outcomes is Illinois winning outright. I think that would take some Dylan Gabriel against Michigan State throwing 2 red zone interceptions type of thing to happen. But I do think that there is a universe in which Brett Bielema mucks this game up, slows the game down, tries to take the air out of the ball, and tries to rely on his running game, which was better against Michigan last week. They averaged 4.9 yards per carry, which I didn't look to see if that was a season high, but we have noted this a couple times. We needed to see a little bit more from Illinois running the football, and they showed that pretty well last week. They got Luke Altmaier involved in the run game. He had a pretty decent get day on the ground, in addition to Josh McCray and Aiden Lowry.
McCray was supposed to be kind of the stud coming in this year, right? And I believe he was down with an injury for a little while.
No, that was Caden Fagan, who was out for the season.
Huh. Then the announcers on the game last week misspoke because they said McCray.
Or maybe he was. I don't know. One of them was. Fagan's out for the
Fagan
season.
is out? Ugh.
Yeah, Fagan's out for the season. He had surgery, but Altmaier, McCray, and Lowry last week, Altmaier, they were all over 48 yards rushing, but McCray, 17 carries, 50 yards, so not a particularly efficient day on the ground. They will have to be a little bit more efficient on the ground against this Ducks defense, because as good as Luke Altmaier has been this year, he was not as good last week. 9 of 18 for 80 yards and a touchdown against the Wolverines.
80 yards.
And that pass defense is the strength of this Oregon defense. They do well getting after the quarterback. They're still, sounds like, without Jordan Birch in this one. Dave said a couple more injuries, possibly, right?
Ferguson.
Dale, yeah, Ferguson.
And then I forget the other guy. Maybe a lineman?
I don't remember. I would have to go back and look at our mentions to see. But yeah, Ferguson had an appendectomy, so it sounds like he's going to be out again.
He's done for a while.
We kind of noted this watching the game against Purdue last week. Oregon against the run on defense, potentially susceptible. So if this newfound Illinois uptick in the rushing attack is going to be a thing, I think that is a potential avenue for them to exploit this Oregon defense. And that, again, kind of goes into Clinton maybe taking the air out of the ball a little bit and trying to slow this game down.
Yes. That was my biggest thought through this game. And again, this is another one where I've been back and forth. Listening to the Solid Verbal today. I know Rubenstein is a big Oregon fan, but trying to put that thought in my head aside, listening to their analysis, and they have some great stats for this game and for their teams, and they make the predictions. They kind of swung me the other way a little bit on this one. Some fun facts, though, before we dive into my thoughts here. Oregon and Illinois have played a whopping 3 times in their existence. Oregon is up 2-1. The last matchup went to the Ducks in 1995 with a 34-31 win. Saturday will be the 16th time that Illinois has played the number 1 team. They are 3-12 in those matchups, Ryan. Illinois is also 3-1 versus ranked opponents in 2024. Their most wins against ranked opponents since 2007. Ryan, do you know what those 3 ranked teams have in common this year that Illinois has beaten?
They're no longer ranked.
They are no longer ranked. That does not bode well. You know the one loss that they do have to a ranked team? Oh, that's number 3 Penn State in the country. That does not make me feel very good. What is the line you have us at for Oregon? 22?
Minus 22.
And that line, per the Solid Verbal, started at 25 this week.
Yeah,
and has worked its way down.
It's been moving all over the place.
I have little faith is a strong word. Reduced faith in Illinois' offense to be able to keep pace to score with Oregon. So you're right. Bielema has to muck this game up and be a thorn in their side. You have to force turnovers. I think you almost got to get some short fields. We saw Illinois force turnovers last week against Michigan and then didn't do anything with it. You cannot afford to do that this week. If you get a turnover or 2, you have to capitalize. And again, it's another situation where this can't be field goals. You got to own the time of possession to have a shot to win. You already brought it up. Oregon's susceptible to the run. If Purdue can run the ball on you without a passing game, I feel confident that Illinois should be able to run the ball on you some. Can they carry some of the momentum in from a big program win, at least over Michigan last week? That's a massive spread. But I feel like the Ducks at home, they are hot right now. I'm going to take Oregon minus 22 in this game.
Yeah, I agree with you on this one. I still have some willies with Illinois in their defense and how easy Purdue made it look against them in the second half. And again, a Purdue team we just watched completely be incapable of throwing a downfield pass against Oregon last week. And if that team is scoring 49 points on you, what the hell is this Ducks team going to do?
Again, maybe that's Illinois' worst performance of the year, right? I know they lost to Penn State, but
you look at the rest of their other games, man. Like that's just not. I don't want to say it's not confidence inspiring because you're 6-1, you're ranked 22nd in the nation, like that, or 20th in the nation. Excuse me. That has to stand for something. But I mean, we're talking about a bad Michigan team last week, and you kind of struggle to finish them off. The Penn State game was good, but again, I maybe have some questions about Penn State's explosiveness. I don't know. Maybe that was an impressive win, but again, they couldn't really. I don't know where we would kind of rank Oregon's defense in regards to Penn State's, but
I think I'd take Penn State's.
I agree, but I mean, in terms of like how similar they are, I don't know, especially without Jordan Birch. I don't know that it's necessarily comparable, but we've already seen Illinois against a dominant defense on the road, and they really struggled offensively in that game. And I think Oregon's offense is miles better than Penn State's. So it's kind of one of those games that I don't even really know that Oregon needs to score a shitload of points to be able to cover this spread, because I think they probably hold Illinois to 10 or less, if I'm being completely honest here. So I'm going to take Oregon as well. That I don't feel great about it because, like I said, I could see a universe in which Illinois mucks this up, and this is a ugly game in the fourth quarter. But the Ducks offense seems like the surest thing in this one. So we're riding with that one here. Okay, 12 o'clock, ABC. Notre Dame, a 14-point favorite against the Naval Academy, or as Lou Holtz used to say, the University of Navy. This is a really interesting matchup, Clinton, because I've seen Notre Dame play good Navy teams before. I don't know that I've ever seen a Navy offense like this. They're not exactly like throwing the ball like you would anticipate, like a Lincoln Riley team throwing the ball, but they're running a lot more shotgun. They're certainly throwing more because they can, as opposed to, hey, we're just going to do a quick pop pass here because there's 10 guys in the box and no one's covering our fullback coming out of the backfield. So it's a scary offense, man. There's a lot of weird scheme things going on. There's a lot of motion. There's a lot of eye candy. And if we've seen anything from the Notre Dame defense this year, is with the young linebackers, that's potentially a way to confuse this Notre Dame defense. However, the thing that I find fascinating in this game is Navy good because they're legitimately good, potentially can compete against a Power 4 team good? Or are they good because they have played a schedule this year that is so bad that it ranks like 140th in the nation in strength of schedule? That is, just to recap, there are 134 FBS teams. Their schedule is worse than multiple FCS teams in terms of strength of schedule. So which is it? It's probably a little bit of both, right? But we're talking about now a Notre Dame team that they've not seen this level of athlete before. They beat a pretty good Memphis team this year, but that pretty good Memphis team also scored 44 points and had 650 yards of offense against them. And again, not that Notre Dame's offense is a world beater or anything like that, but they have three guys running the football that can run you over. They've been running people over that are bigger than the Naval Cadets they will be going against in this game. So I'm kind of interested to get your thoughts on this game, Clinton, where your head is at with this one, because I kind of have an idea of what to make of this game, but I kind of see it going in one of two ways, and I'm not sure that there's going to be an in-between with it.
So I dove in a little bit today just to kind of see the history of this game, because obviously you're the Notre Dame fan, as your Irish hoodie shows there. The overall series is heavy Irish, 82-13-1. Notre Dame's won 6 straight. I'm looking up Navy here. I'm looking up their stats. Yes, their offensive numbers are impressive. I think they're a top 5 overall yardage offense, I believe. And I believe they might be top 10 scoring as well, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it's like 44, 45 points a game.
But again, you mentioned the Quilted Northern soft schedule that they've played. So that may have bulked those numbers up a little bit. Blake Horvath, though, is a very good talent for Navy. He does everything for them. He leads them in passing. He leads them in rushing. I think he's like 888 yards passing, and he's over 600 rushing. He is one of 2 players in the NCAA that have both 10 passing TDs and 10 rushing TDs, so impressive stat. They run the hell out of the ball. I think, what are they, close to 300 yards a game almost running the ball?
Yep.
The problem is you have not played anything like Notre Dame yet. All of those offensive stats are nice against the little guys, but now you're playing a grown-ass man team, a team that has a defensive line that's improving. Yes, you mentioned the linebackers. I don't think you're concerned. Like, again, it's a second week without Benjamin Morrison since the season-ending rollout. I don't think you have to be as concerned about their passing game. Yes, they hit some passes. I saw some stuff today. It's on my screen right now, actually, showing Navy highlights and them throwing the ball. But I just don't think you're going to have to worry as much about it. Notre Dame has only allowed over 20 points one time this season. I believe that was Louisville on 24 points.
Yep.
I think Navy's going to have to score over 24 to beat Notre Dame in this game. I don't think they're able to get it done. I like the Irish big in this one, and I'm going to lock it up. Notre Dame is my lock of the week.
Wow. Oh, wow.
Lock of the week.
Look at Clinton.
I'm putting my faith in the Irish. I believe the other time I locked them up this year, did I get it correct? I think I might have gotten it correct. My only other... I think I've only got 1 or 2 locks correct all season, so that's not much faith coming from me picking that.
When did you lock? Did you lock him up? Did you lock him up against Purdue?
Was it Purdue or Miami? Maybe.
Well, they didn't cover against Miami.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember. I have to go back and listen, but I like them big in this. I respect what Navy's done. I'm excited to see the Army-Navy game, probably back-to-back weeks. Which is unfortunate for these teams, given also that your Army-Navy end of season normal matchup doesn't really count for anything. It counts to your record, but it doesn't count for your conference record. So I think I'm excited for that, but I just don't think they can hang with Notre Dame.
I'm like the worst person to ask about this because my preconditioned response is always to expect the worst in this game. I hate that they play this game still because it's one of those like, and this is going to be like the perfect litmus test for it this year. You have a 6-0 Navy team that's 23rd in the nation right now. You beat them. The response at the end of the year is going to be, so what? It's Navy. Every year, it's even
we beat another service academy.
Yeah, even when it's a good ranked Navy team, which they've played a good ranked Navy team multiple times the last decade, the response is always, "Oh, whatever, you beat Navy." It's not as bad now as it used to be because they kind of got the NCAA kind of changed their rules on cut blocking. But you could guarantee, like early to mid 2000s in this game, you're going to lose a defensive lineman for the year with a knee injury because he got cut block in this game. It's just I am going to piss off some of the old hat Notre Dame fans if any of them listen to this show, but I hate that they still play this game. Like, cool, you paid your debt from World War II. It's been 100 years. Let it go. Let it go. It's a no-win game. There's 1 of 2 ways this game's going to go, Clinton. Either Notre Dame's going to beat the brakes off of them, or Navy is going to get the ball back with about 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter, down by like 4 points with a chance to drive
on the clock out and win.
Yeah, and I don't know who's going to win the game in that scenario, but it's going to be Navy with the ball with a chance to win the game late. Like, it's literally going to go 1 of 2 ways. And there's been some weird games in this one, right? Like, I think it was 2 years ago, Notre Dame went up like 33-0 in this game in the first half, and then Navy almost came back and won because they just started doing engage 8 on every play, and Drew Pine could not figure out how to get the ball out clean. It was so frustrating to watch. It was every play. I'm like, they're blitzing 8! Throw it to the running back! And he never did.
Well, what about
same
this
Drew Pine who's
like,
starting for Mizzou this weekend? Go Tigers!
Navy hasn't faced an offense like this. Obviously, Notre Dame is improving.
Memphis is pretty good. Memphis's offense is pretty good.
Yeah, fair. Notre Dame is improving on offense. Riley Leonard's settling in the pass game. Why not go 4 or 5 wide on a lot of sets and make those DBs cover? I think the problem is that's not the strategy Notre Dame's going to want to do. They're going to want to roll out and run the ball and bash your face in. Which does that end up biting them in the ass and keeping Navy in the game later?
I think you do a little bit of both in this one. Is you spread the formation out, but you still run it because Navy can't really stop the run either. Like, they're bad against the run on defense. And as good as the Navy offensive turnaround has been, this is still the same Navy defense. Like, there's been no dramatic change from like a personnel or a scheme standpoint that Notre Dame hung 42 on without really breaking a sweat last year in Ireland. With, I don't know, I guess you could say a little bit of a better quarterback in Sam Hartman. He was at least good against the crappy teams when his receivers were open because he could hit the wide open guys, which Riley Leonard hasn't really shown a penchant for doing. But Notre Dame's receivers are probably a little bit better from last year. Tight ends are worse. Mitchell Evans still is clearly not 100% from last year's ACL surgery. No Audric Estime for the Irish run game, but Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price have both been exceptional. Plus, you have a much bigger run threat from your quarterback this year. Riley Leonard's already got 10 rushing touchdowns this year. Notre Dame's season record for quarterback rushing touchdowns is 14. Depending on how this game goes, he might tie that this weekend. Maybe, potentially. I'm just gonna go Notre Dame minus 14. I think they make a statement.
Good call.
I think it was JD Pickell from On3 made a video today.
I thought his last name was Pickle.
I thought it was too, but I was listening to the Andy Staples show, and they were talking about the UTEP's third string quarterback's name is JP Pickles or something like that. And then that's when they said his name. I'm like, this is legitimately the first time I've heard this dude's last name pronounced. But he was making a video about how if Notre Dame makes the playoff, the best thing that could have happened to him this year was the Northern Illinois loss because it kind of gave, the old scared straight.
Mm-hmm.
It scared him straight. You're not going to overlook an opponent now because you lost to a crappy MAC team. Even if it's a good Navy team, sometimes human nature creeps in. It's like, we beat the crap out of these guys last year. You don't have to worry about it. Not overlooking it. They know what they have to do. And if Notre Dame is locked in for this game, I think they take care of business. The one thing that does worry me, again, is you can't afford to have empty possessions against Navy. They're not as ball control as they usually are. But typically, this is a game where you're only getting 8 real possessions.
Mm-hmm.
And if you kind of do what you did late, like mid to late third quarter, fourth quarter against Georgia Tech last week, and you just start looking like ass on offense, then that's a surefire way, especially if you do that early in the game, to kind of screw yourself. But I'm just going to roll with the Irish because I've been kind of hedging my emotions with them, and I'm just going to go with my chest here and say they're going to win. Whatever. Okay, going back to Friday night, the real barn burner of the weekend, 11 p.m. on Fox. Good God, Clinton. Rutgers. Oh, my God, yeah. Listen, this game is going to put me to sleep.
I don't need to be put to sleep. I'm going to sleep before it comes on.
Rutgers traveling west to take on the Trojans of USC. Two teams going in the same direction. Down, 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 down. I should have
down the drain.
Yeah, they've not been good. I think the big difference between these two games is USC is finding new and innovative ways to lose games each week, and Rutgers is just bad. Like
Rutgers ran out of magic.
Yeah,
happened.
They ran out of healthy bodies on defense, which definitely does not help. But this is
Ryan, real quick, I want to stop you here. In this Pitt Syracuse game, no, but Syracuse has a 20-minute, 24-second time of possession to Pitt's 9 minutes and 36 seconds. And folks, it's 31-0 Pitt.
Bro. Pitt had 83 yards in the first half, and they have 31 points.
On the McCord.
83 first half yards and 31 points.
Oh, my God. And you know what the crazy thing is? I'm sitting here looking at this. Pitt didn't even sell out half this stadium. They're missing the ass beating of a lifetime right now. Oh, my God.
Listen, we're talking smack right now, and people are going to listen to this tomorrow morning when the final score is 34-31 Syracuse, and they're going to be like, why are they talking smack about Kyle McCord? Listen, you react as it comes up.
That's right. That's why it's a live reaction show.
That'd be good for me. Clinton, we're not messing around on this one.
Locking up Rutgers, are you?
Lock of the week.
No, I'm locking up USC. I think USC wins this game by like 80.
Yeah.
Y'all have seen the video. You've heard the rant. I'm sick of this talk about how good USC is. But of the two teams in this game,
Wait a second. You don't mean they're not the 5th best team in the Big Ten anymore, Ryan?
Somebody posted on a Notre Dame message board. They're like, Joel Klatt picked Navy to win outright. I'm like, Joel Klatt also said last week that USC was.
Did he seriously?
Yeah. He also said
I haven't
week
listened to his
USC
Pick'em show, so
I don't listen to Joel Klatt because I think he's a moron. So it's like
maybe outright.
This guy said USC was the 5th best team in the Big Ten last week. You're really going to put stock in what he's saying? Okay,
no effing way.
But I do at least buy the fact that USC has a functioning and potentially dangerous offense.
Mhm.
And even with the depth issues, the falling apart late in games on defense, I think by the time that happens, Rutgers isn't going to be able to take advantage by just running Kyle Monangai up the middle because they're going to be down by like 28 points.
Yeah. It's another thing of Rutgers has to find something just to control the time of possession, right?
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, your beaten and battered defense is going to get exploded on like a bukkake. It's going to be big trouble.
Jesus Christ. This is a family show.
Oh, so which team can get back on track this week? Is it USC? Is it Rutgers? I mean, USC, you already mentioned they have the more explosiveness, the more talent at most positions, arguably running back, but Woody Marks is pretty darn good.
Clinton, they're going for it.
They're going for it on 4th.
From their own like 28-yard line.
Desperate times call for desperate measures.
Oh my Lanta, dude. This game is going to get out of hand.
We're also looking at another time travel game for Rutgers going across country.
Ooh,
we're going wishbone here. T formation. They got it.
Did they just run a quarterback sneak out? That was the worst quarterback sneak I've ever seen.
Oh, it's McCord, man.
Oh God,
if this game is within 2 scores, though, Ryan, in the 4th quarter, who do you have more faith?
Oh my God,
winning the 4th quarter game. Yes, that was my big note. Can they find another way to blow a 4th quarter lead? Biggest question for this game, though, and this is a serious one. Will any fans actually show up to this game, given that the World Series is happening the same night? And will this game have the least amount of viewers? I'm talking as like TV time. Least amount of viewers for a Big Ten game this season, given the start time, the World Series, and the trend of these teams.
No, I don't think it'll be maybe if we're talking like because it's on. I'm pretty sure it's on Fox. I could have swore I heard somewhere say it was FS1, but I think it's Fox. It might be the lowest for like a network television, but it's still going to do better than some of these Big Ten games, like Big Ten network games.
Yeah, I could see that, certainly.
Maybe.
For me, though, gosh, I should have faded Rutgers last week, and I didn't put enough faith in UCLA to get it done. I am fading Rutgers this week, and give me USC in this game.
Good for you. Good
it's
for us.
14?
It is 13 and a half, 14.
13 and a half, so 14.
Distinction without a difference.
I think this could honestly get out of hand.
Yeah.
Because Rutgers is only going to be able to keep pace if their defense can find ways to get turnovers or stops, and then Monangai runs wild. I'm saying the same thing I said 2 to 3 weeks ago. Kyle Monangai just needs to stay healthy and get the hell off of this team.
Yeah.
So he can go get drafted and have a great NFL career with probably the Kansas City Chiefs.
I think the most interesting thing about this game to me, Clinton, is I'm not like plugged in with Rutgers fans at all. So I don't know like what the vibe is on Greg Schiano, but I know one of the guys who does the pick'em thing with us is a Rutgers fan. And I think he was posting a week ago, like, is it time for them to just kind of move on from Greg Schiano? What's like the mood of the fan base of the team that loses this game? I feel like if USC loses this game, they might burn down Lincoln Riley's house.
They're going to send the Trojan horse to Lincoln Riley's house. I think it's a gift, and all the fans are going to come out with pitchforks.
But like,
just take them out.
What's like if Rutgers gets their doors blown off in this game? What's the mood of the fan base going to be? Because it's like, again, it's one of those things that our talk about Rutgers preseason was not necessarily centered around we think this team is fantastic. It was more so like, okay, they got a good defense, they got a really good running back, but the schedule is really favorable. And now we're going to be sitting here. What are they going to be 4-4 if they lose this game after starting 4-0?
I think of 4 games left, so they can't get to 9 wins like we were kind of hoping for.
9 wins. They'd have to win out to get to kind of that 8-win mark. And then we're sitting here looking at like, wow, we're talking about the best chance for Rutgers to hit that 9-win mark, potentially be ranked, and they're going to finish 6-6 again. Like, what's the mood of the fan base going to be with that? So that's kind of what I'm interested
I wonder if you give you give Shianu just a little bit of leeway, maybe because of the injuries. I don't think Rutgers is the fan base may ask for it. I don't think the AD and the president are going to move on from Shianu. Shianu is the best thing to ever happen to Rutgers football twice. And
That's
you're
true.
at no threat to leave him or him to leave and go somewhere else. I think it's a situation where he's set to be there. They've got a nice recruiting class coming in. I remember they were top 10 for a while. I'm sure they're not right now, but they have a good recruiting class coming in as far as the Rutgers standards go.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you kind of let the guy build. You try to find a maybe better option as a transfer quarterback this year, but this was kind of the year, right? Like you had Monunga, you had an easier schedule, a good defense.
Yep.
If you couldn't pull someone this year, I don't know how you're going to pull him next year.
No.
But you got to find a quarterback that you can groom in the Jersey area, I guess, to be with this team.
There's some pretty decent Northeast area quarterbacks that you can kind of pull from. I mean, look, freaking Pitt pulled Eli Holstein from
Maybe
Alabama.
they bring Gavin Wimsatt back after this year. Hey, LaQuint Allen. Catch. First down.
All right. Good.
Ty goes to the offense.
Listen, I just need him to get within 17, Clinton. That is all I need.
We need him to get within 17, don't we? In that pick 'em too, because we took Cuse.
No, they need to get the spread was 5.
Oh,
but I alt spreaded it at 17 because I'm like,
so
no
we're
way
dead.
I'm like, there's no way. I'm like, there's no way Cuse gets blown out. Famous last words.
Yeah. Well,
next 12 o'clock on Fox. We spent some time talking about this one on
Monday.
Noon. Nebraska looking to put last week's putrid performance behind them and hopefully not have a putrid performance this week in front of them. Traveling to Columbus to take on the Buckeyes coming off of their loss against Oregon 2 weeks ago. The Buckeyes 25.5-point favorites in this one, Clinton. I think I'm kind of with you. I think Ohio State might win this one by several touchdowns.
Well, you certainly cut that clip and sent it to Rob, who then posted it on Nebraska media.
But you see, nobody tweeted at us.
No, because I think they know.
Everyone probably watched it and they're like, well, yeah,
he's right.
He's probably right.
He's not wrong. How does Nebraska bounce back after getting railroaded last week? Like that was just a pounding of mass proportion. Can Raiola bounce back after multiple turnovers last week? Does Nebraska attempt to attack the new left tackle Zen Michalski for Ohio State? Or the kind of just that left side of the O-line in general, seeing how they're gelling? Will it matter even though? Because I don't know if Ohio State has a good ground game. I don't think it's going to matter. He graded out really good in the run game from what I heard. It's more, do you test him in the pass game? Ohio State, though, I've seen it before, and I brought it up with you and Rob on Monday night. Do they come out quick or kind of that bye-week lull, which we saw a few years ago in Urban's last year, I believe, after a loss, come back out, play Nebraska. It's a 4-quarter game. That was a dart. Good throw.
Nice catch.
Again, overall at Ohio State, I'm going to be at the game, so I'm going to be watching, looking for run game, pass protection with the new left tackle on the left side of the offensive line. Michalski's had 2 full weeks of practice now under his belt, so sounds like the staff has a lot of confidence in him. He made a ton of strides in spring. This is his 4th year in, so he knows the offense. The other keynote here is Day on Tuesday said he wants Ohio State to start attempting more downfield passes. Do they let it fly this week? Do they let it fly this week? Most teams have been keeping 2 high safeties to try to limit their explosiveness over the top, which is why Ohio State is kind of feasted in the middle. You're going to get occasions here and there where Jeremiah Smith's is going to take the top off your defense. That's about just how it's going to be. What type of response do we see from the pass rush or the defensive line in this game? They've heard about it for 2 weeks. Oh, look they got all these former 5-stars and they have high pass rush rates and they can't get sacks against any good teams. I'm saying at least a minimum 4-sack game in this game. Now, again, this is not an elite offensive line in the scenario of Oregon, Penn State, but it's a good bounce back. 4 sacks for Ohio State minimum. Where's Denzel Burke's head?
Get out! Sorry, I thought you were done.
No, where's Burke's head in this game? He's looking a little less like burnt toast now that he's had 2 weeks to shave some of it off, but
Jesus Christ.
Raiola is young, but he can put passes on a rope. I expect if he has the time, Nebraska is going to test Denzel Burke and test him early. If he doesn't have his head out of his ass, that could give the Huskers a little bit of momentum. However, as I said on Monday, I think we get a little bit of a bloodbath here. Ohio State covers. Ohio State 45, Nebraska 14.
That's cute that you think Nebraska's going to score 14 points.
They're going to get a late touchdown against Ohio State's
there you
second
go.
string defense.
I just don't know what there is to be excited about for Nebraska in this game. Like, at least last week heading into the Indiana game, we could somewhat like hypothesize maybe the defense slows down Kurtis Rourke, and now we're kind of sitting here like, well, and this is no slander to Indiana and Kurtis Rourke in their running game, which is fantastic, but I still think we're operating under the assumption that there is at least a superior athlete at the skill position at Ohio State compared to Indiana, a little bit at least, right?
I would hope.
So if those guys and I mean, I think Kurtis Rourke's probably a better quarterback than Will Howard, but I digress.
I would love to see Kurtis Rourke on Ohio State's offense.
There was a guy 2 years ago talking about Kurtis Rourke on a Notre Dame message board. He's like, that's the guy we should get in the portal. I'm like, that's ridiculous. There's no way.
They were talking about him being an NFL draft prospect 2 years ago before he got hurt. The kid is good. He's getting drafted. I don't know how high, but he's going to. Apparently, also, I'm sure we're about to get into Indiana's game, but Rourke had thumb surgery to address whatever the thumbnail issue is. He is expected back next week.
Good.
So we'll see if that holds true, but the expectation.
Yeah, man, I think OSU's probably in the 40s, and I would be shocked if Nebraska gets double digits in this one. So I'm with you. I'm going Ohio State. Good transition. Washington, 12 o'clock, Big Ten Network. Another body clock game, 12 Eastern, 9 Pacific, the Huskies in Bloomington. I actually don't know what time zone Bloomington is in. That's southeast.
They're the same as us. They're Eastern time zone.
Okay, cool. Hoosiers still a 6.5 point favorite. This line really hasn't moved at all this week. I think it opened at 7.5, and I grabbed it as soon as I heard the Rourke news, and then I thought about it. I'm like, well, that was kind of stupid of me. So there's still a lot of confidence in the Hoosiers in this game. Taven Jackson looked pretty good in the second half against Nebraska last week, and again, we kind of touched on this on Sunday. How much of that was, well, Taven Jackson looked pretty good. That's encouraging versus Nebraska's will to live was completely broken by that point in the game. Who's to say? But he's a guy who has been there. Pre-Kirk Cignetti. He's obviously been through all the spring practice. We're not talking about a late transfer here. And I mean, the offense still looked like it functioned similarly with him. You know, maybe some of the reads are different. Maybe they're not opening as much of the playbook with him. Maybe he doesn't have the same mastery as Kurtis Rourke of the playbook. Because I mean, they've been there at the same time, right? It's not like, you know, Kurtis Rourke is a guy who's been in this system for 3 years or whatever. He picked it up pretty quickly. He's a really good quarterback. And Taven Jackson was a guy, I think he was a 4-star prospect. So, I mean, we're talking about a talented guy. We're not talking about a scrub here. The things that I'm kind of paying attention to in this game is, again, the body clock angle from Washington. That's another long road trip, playing a game at breakfast time. That's not great for you. We're still talking about a Washington team that struggles with discipline, right? But we saw them put together a good game against Michigan, but that's been few and far between, these instances of putting these good quality games together, not taking stupid penalties, not committing stupid turnovers. And from the IU side, is there a letdown after last week, right? We're talking about a game in which Big Noon was in town. There was a lot of hype around it. You came out, you blew the doors off of Nebraska, and that kicked the hype into overdrive. So is there a little bit of an emotional letdown from that? I don't really think that there is, probably. Cignetti seems locked in. He seems to have those guys locked in right now. They just seem like they're on a mission right now. And for me, Clinton, I'm riding with Indiana until they give me a reason to not ride with them. So we're going, even though I bet real money on Washington like a dumbass, I'm going to ride with Indiana here and take the Hoosiers -6.5.
Yep. Does coming off a bye week at all help the body clock issue for Washington? I don't know. It still seems like a challenge. Will Rogers, though, got to stay hot. 72% of his passes have been completed. He's got 13 TDs to 2 picks. They have to make the choice to establish the run game with Jonah Coleman. If they get unbalanced in this game, I think Indiana and Cignetti are going to eat them alive. Nebraska was supposed to be a tough, back to Washington. Washington's defense, kind of iffy, right? And even with Rourke out, Taven Jackson has legs. And Indiana's run game is, I can't even think of a word to give it. They're fantastic. I don't know that Washington's rush defense is good enough statistically to stop that. Nebraska was supposed to be that tough test last week, and we saw that Indiana made quick work of them and sent them packing. This is likely the best offense, though, that Indiana has faced. We said last week best defense, this week best offense. Now, do we get Washington that played Iowa, or do we get Washington that has been able to beat Michigan and hang with? Washington has at least had a pretty tough schedule. I don't think they're going to kind of be fazed by the idea of this being a tough matchup. What does Indiana's defense do to stop those wide receivers, especially the trio of Washington, plus a run game if they do stay balanced? How can they perform on offense without Rourke? I think the pass game is a little less impactful this week, but Jackson's legs open up a ton. He has to play a full game with limited to no mistakes. When backup quarterbacks start making mistakes, you give the other team life. His confidence gets shook. The great thing is they have the run game to lean on. It's a different scenario when a team gets an entire week to prep for you, though. So they probably went back, prepped their tape, had them ready for this. Different coaching staff. I just can't bet against the Hoosiers at this point in time. I think Indiana being at home again gets it done. If this game were at Washington, I might have a little different vibe. Backup quarterback, 3-hour travel, but they get him at home. Indiana is America's team right now, if there ever was. They're more of America's team than the Dallas Cowboys are, right? Give me the Hoosiers -6.5.
Yeah, I think that's a good point there, too. If we flip the venues on this one, I think this would be a pretty big difference because Washington's a pretty tough place to play. And having Taven Jackson make his first start of the season on the road as opposed to at home, that would be a little different. Looking back at that Michigan game, though, Washington, again, we're talking about a Michigan team that does not have a functioning pass game and had even less of one in this contest. Still ran for 175 yards, 4.7 yards per carry. So, yeah, I feel good about our pick.
Syracuse is facing, I believe, their fourth down this drive to try to keep this drive alive.
This drive,
they just pulled something out of their, hey, second McCord QB sneak first down.
Got it.
LaQuint Allen on the last play, McCord was staring at the sideline, pretending like he didn't know what he's doing, and they snapped it to LaQuint Allen, and he didn't go anywhere.
I don't think this might be a hot take, but taking a drive that takes the first half of the third quarter when you are down by 31-0 seems like not the best idea.
Dude, we got to look at the total time of possession at the end of this game because now they're at 20.
It'd be 29 minutes now. 29 minutes now.
Hey guys, listen, they can't blow us out any worse if we don't let them have the ball.
They've 83 yards, Clinton. There's 6 minutes and 30 seconds left in the third quarter, and Pitt has 83 yards. Oh, the little jet.
He's short.
Pass. Oh my God, you guys are pathetic. Jacob, you owe me $75 for this Syracuse effort. I'm putting this one on you. He's gonna listen to this in like 3 days and text me being like, "What?"
Who we got next? Northwestern Iowa?
Yeah, 3:30 Big Ten Network. Northwestern travels to Iowa. The Hawkeyes a 14.5-point favorite in this one. I don't really know what to make of this one, Clinton, because we were riding high on Northwestern there for a hot minute, and they kind of pooed the bed last week against Wisconsin. The Jack Lausch train kind of turned back into a pumpkin there a little bit. Not really able to throw the ball last week against the Wisconsin defense. Didn't really have much better success running the ball, and not a vintage Iowa defense in this one, but still a pretty good Iowa defense. That does not seem to bode well for the Wildcats in this one.
No, Iowa's defense has to bounce back. I know they're dealing with some injuries, but they gave up one of their worst performances in years. They gave up nearly 500 yards of offense to Michigan State as Syracuse finally gets on the board with
there was an 18-play, 10-minute drive while you're down 31-0.
Horrendous.
Hell, man.
500 yards of offense almost to Michigan State last week. Iowa needs to get Caleb Johnson rolling in this game. Remember, he had the big 70-plus yard TD run last week to culminate most of his 90 yards.
Yep.
You have to get him rolling in this game. The quarterback play's still been poor. I'm sorry, Iowa fans. It's ass. McNamara struggles.
It's not good.
Do you go to Sullivan? If he struggles in this game, do they actually make an in-game change? On the flip side of Northwestern, how much do Lausch's legs stress the Iowa defense that's clearly been beat up? Is the top receiver Henning going to play? I tried to do some digging today. I didn't find anything. The recent update is just still from 5 days ago. He left last week's game with an upper body injury, so that's a big hit to their offense if they don't have him. At this point, I can't buy Northwestern in this game coming into Iowa. Give me Iowa minus 14.5.
Yeah, buddy, I'm with you on this one. Northwestern's offense has been far too inconsistent, and it's not been inconsistent in the good way, right? Where if you look at look at Notre Dame, for example, it's like, well, they could struggle to move the ball for a couple of drives, but when they're moving the ball, it looks great. This is more so sometimes Jack Louse makes some really good plays with his legs, which opens up the pass, and he hits a couple of long shots on deep balls that are remarkably underthrown, but his guy was wide open. But also they look like they can barely throw the ball forward, which is kind of what we saw against Wisconsin last week. So for all the questions that we have about Iowa in this game, I don't think they have that much difficulty shutting down this Northwestern attack. And, the Iowa offense has shown a couple times this year the ability to hit an over on their own. So I'm going to take the Iowa and minus the points with you as well here, Clinton.
Does it leave us with 2 games?
Leaves us with 2 games here.
We got to finish Michigan State. So let's knock out Maryland, Minnesota.
3:30 FS1. The Terps coming off of their big last-second win against USC last week, taking off the Golden Gophers fresh off a bye with the beautiful throwback uniforms this week. The Minnesota uniforms, Clinton, top-notch every single week.
Absolutely.
Just fantastic.
Hashtag winning. Charge it to winning.
The Gophers are a 4-point favorite in this one. You got a dog down there today? We just got a...
Yep. Lola came down to hang out.
Lucy does
She's
not
my
like
podcast dog now. Yeah, I didn't run over her tail. She was just, I was petting her and she shook her ears.
Lucy only hangs out with me if Sam's not here. It's kind of unfortunate. Thoughts on the matchup in this one, Clinton? Last time we saw the Gophers, they were struggling late against UCLA.
They were barely hanging on. Both teams beat a fading USC team. That's what they have in common.
This is true.
For Maryland, I'm keeping this short and sweet. And here goes my dog up the stairs. So I apologize for any nails on the wooden steps if you guys hear it. I really only have faith in Edwards in the passing game for Maryland. I don't have faith in much else. I've watched more Terrapin football than I thought I would this year. Minnesota plays good D. They have Darius Taylor. They have the bros before hose, Max Brosmer. Gophers at home with a good crowd and a good environment. Give me Goldie. Gophers -4.
Oh man, I think I'm with you on this one. I don't feel great about it. This is like the one game a week where I just don't have a good pulse on anything about it. Like in a vacuum, I like the Maryland passing attack a little bit more. That's probably maybe, is it the best aspect of this game? Maybe. Minnesota's defense hasn't been too bad this year. I don't really like Max Brosmer per se, but if this game is close, he's shown that he's like Joe Montana in the fourth quarter. So I doubted the Gophers a couple weeks ago. I'm not going to doubt him in this one.
Fleck's going to fleck it up, man.
He's going to fleck it up. Give me the Gophers. They get to 5 wins in this one, and Maryland falls to 4-4.
Listen, I know we have Penn State, Wisconsin, and we have Oregon, Illinois. This is the game I have my eye on. This is the most intriguing game of the week. I am thrilled about this game.
I agree with you, Clinton, because it's one of those games that coming into this year, Michigan fans were puffing their chests about like, oh my God, you're still little brother. You guys suck, blah, 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 blah. And boy, how the tables have turned over the last 2-3 weeks in this one. So 7:30, this one's gotten relegated to the Big Ten Network, which is kind of funny to me.
When's the last time this game was on BTN?
I have no earthly
goodness
concept as
sakes
to how to answer that question. It's just because it's one of those. it's like you'd think that the networks would want Michigan, but that tells you how bad Michigan's been that they're like, no thanks, we're gonna not do this. We'd rather take Wisconsin, who might get their ass beat by Wisconsin or Penn State. Wisconsin might beat their own ass in that game. I don't know. Michigan, a 5-point favorite. This line's kind of been all over the place. I think it opened maybe at 7.5. It got down to 3 for a minute, back up to 5 now. I mean, for me with Michigan State, Clinton, it kind of starts and ends with what Aiden Chiles shows up. If we get good Aiden Chiles, I think there's a very good chance that Michigan State wins this game outright. If we get bad Aiden Chiles showing up and he throws 2 interceptions, then I think Michigan's still plenty good enough defensively and can run the ball well enough that they end up winning this game. It's been it's hard to gauge where Michigan State is at because obviously very good win against Iowa last week, right? Like I think that was a big step in the right direction for this program. But the 2 weeks before that, you get Oregon and then you get Ohio State. And how much are you really going to learn from those? Probably not a ton at this point in the Jonathan Smith build. I think we'd be looking at this team far differently if they managed to beat Boston College, because then you're sitting at 5-2. And, oh man, maybe this build's a little bit ahead of schedule here. As it stands, both teams 4-3 heading into this one. For the season, Aiden Chiles has thrown for almost 1,500 yards. Pretty good. 6 touchdowns. Not too bad. The issue is he has also thrown 9 interceptions, and I believe he's also fumbled it like 2 times as well. So which Aiden Chiles is showing up for this weekend, Clinton?
Are you asking me before you give your pick, or are you just airing it out there?
Oh, buddy, I'm fading Michigan hard. Give me Michigan State plus the points. Like I think the most realistic outcome in this game is Michigan wins by like 3 points. So I think Michigan State's going to go.
Yeah. I'm not sure which Chiles we're going to get. I'm going to kind of give the confidence to how he played last week, pulling a big win over a good Iowa team and a good Iowa defense. I think that carries into, I would argue, an Iowa-Michigan head-to-head matchup, I'd probably take Iowa with their healthy defense.
I agree.
But I think I'd probably take Iowa. I think their offense is better than Michigan's at this point. I like Caleb Johnson. I know like Kalel Mollings, but Johnson, I think, is one of the best backs in the country. Michigan's off a disappointing loss to Illinois. Michigan, the state, the big win off Iowa. 7 games and 3 quarterbacks for this Michigan team so far, Ryan. They rank dead last in the Big Ten in passing.
That's pathetic.
The bad quarterback play has permeated throughout the entire team. Michigan State, and we're going to take a look back at Iowa last week. They got a pretty good push against the Hawkeye defensive line. Can you do it against Kenneth Grant? Yes, Kenneth Grant and Mason Graham.
Mm-hmm.
Can you do it against them? Illinois kind of did. Can Michigan State? You already alluded to it. Which Aiden Chiles do we get? Nick Marsh, Will Johnson. I had this highlighted here. Does Will Johnson play? If he does, how effective is he? Mm-hmm. And if he does play, is Nick Marsh able to make some big splash plays with him covering him? A freshman versus an arguably top 10 pick, that's a tough matchup, right? And Will Johnson, they may move Marsh around to where Will Johnson's not on him all the time if he plays, but Will Johnson's probably going to erase whoever he covers in this game. Mm-hmm. The all-time record in this game, 73, 38-5 to the Michigan Wolverines. Michigan won this game in a landslide last year, 49-0. I remember turning it on, and I turned it off as soon as I turned it on. It was over as soon as the coin flip happened. But you're right. Michigan State's heard this. I think their last win was the 2021 with Kenneth Walker. But your little brother, you can't beat us. Da-da-da-da-da. You know how much Michigan State would love to walk into Ann Arbor and beat this mouthy-ass team that they've heard nothing from for the past few years. Here's one of these Michigan guys I've interacted with on Twitter. He was talking something about this game. I was like, oh, so if Michigan loses this, Michigan loses this game, you're just saying, well, we won the Natty last year, so that's all that matters. Is that just going to be your comeback every week when you lose? Like, that gets old fast. Like, yes, you won it. It's 2024.
Point,
it's over.
At a certain point, you got to be like, okay, well, yeah, we won the Natty last year, but now we're 6.
But we suck.
This kind of sucks.
It's okay. And you got a natty. That's great. But you suck this year.
Yeah.
I'm taking Michigan State with the points. Michigan State's going to win 23-16 in this game.
So something maybe potentially interesting is first 4 games of the season, Aiden Giles threw 7 interceptions, only 2 the last 3 games. So maybe we're turning a corner a little bit here. This is an interesting spot for both teams because on the one hand, for Michigan, it's, big time nut up Pride weekend, season's not going the way you wanted.
Is it homecoming for them?
I have no idea.
It's around that time. October is homecoming. So,
Colson Loveland talking about, well, we can at least go out and ruin someone's season. And I mean, not that Michigan State's playing
that's what it's come to.
Particularly great, but I mean, you lose a rivalry game, that still can potentially ruin a season. You get it at home. The issue with getting this game at home. Oh no,
he just
Kyle
threw a
McCord.
5th pick.
Oh no, Kyle McCord.
Oh.
I mean,
Ryan, it is Halloween and Kyle McCord's wearing orange. He has turned back into a pumpkin.
3 of these picks have not been his fault. Well, I mean, that was kind of a bad.
He made the decision to throw him.
Yeah, but there's been a couple where it's bounced off the receiver's hands.
You're right, but still.
Did that hit the receiver's hands or did that get tipped by the linebacker?
We're about to see, folks.
Here we go.
Kyle McCord takes a snap, drops back.
Learn today.
Oh shit, they're getting pass rush again. That was a defensive tip.
Yeah, that was not a good throw.
So that was good defensive play.
The issue though with playing at home when you are struggling is if your quarterback play is still bad and you go 3 and out the first series, you punt a couple times in the first quarter, then the home crowd starts to turn on you a little bit. The boo birds start to come out. And with Michigan State, there's no pressure on them in this game, man. Like nobody came into this year thinking Michigan State would win this game. And if you're Michigan, you lose this game, you fall to 4-4. You have 4 games left. It's at Oregon, Northwestern, Indiana, and Ohio State. You are legitimately looking at
lock to win one.
You are looking at legitimately not going to a bowl game a year after winning the national title if you lose this game. That's insane.
Yep.
Like, I think there's a ton of I don't necessarily buy the Sharon Moore's on the hot seat talk, but if they lose this game, maybe I wonder what kind of that red line is where it's okay, we screwed up. We're just going to kind of reset this and get a coach during the regular carousel and not one that was kind of rushed shotgun in late January, early February. So, fascinating. I mean, I think there's some pretty good evening games, so I don't know how much I'm going to necessarily be locked into this one, but we'll definitely have it on at least the telephone.
I have a thought, and we're weeks away, right? We're about a month out from the Ohio State-Michigan game.
Yep.
If Ohio State, let's say, regardless of their 10-2, actually, let's say this. Let's push. They're 10-1. They're a lock to go to the Big Ten championship, essentially, assuming they're going to win the Michigan game. Let's say they're heading to the Big Ten title game. If Ohio State's given the chance to absolutely blow the doors off Michigan, do you think Ryan Day doesn't?
Does it? Oh, 100%.
If he can hang 70 points on him, he doesn't?
Probably.
Yeah, that would be my thought, right? After all the crap you've heard the past few years, I would assume no score is too big.
Well, yeah, he said in 2020 that he was going to hang 100 on him, and then they didn't play.
And then Michigan bitched out with COVID, and
then
he lost 3 straight.
He's got his lunch handed to him 3 straight years.
Yep. So I was just thinking about that. That still may be a great game. I still think there's a mental block there. At this point, I got to see what Ohio State can do against Penn State before I trust them in that Michigan game right now. Because when we came into the season, I was going to pick Michigan in the game. I said, until you beat them, I'm taking them. I might have to go against that this year because they're pretty rough.
Is, going into, and I mean, again, granted, we're 5 weeks out or whatever from that game now, but that's going to be a completely different vibe in that game because it's still going to be a situation where all the pressure's on Ohio State, but there's going to be literally no pressure on Michigan because they're ass. No one's expecting
might only have 5 wins.
Yes. So we're talking about what's going to be an awful Michigan team against an Ohio State team that can't keep tripping over itself in this game. And it's kind of that all-time, and again, I'm not saying that Michigan's going to be a trap game for Ohio State, but it has that kind of feel to it where it's like, oh my God, we're going to beat the crap out of these guys. They stink. And then, especially in Columbus too, right? You get if that game's 7-7 at the end of the first quarter, you get the boo birds start coming out, the crowd starts getting restless. Like, holy crap, here we go again. How are we tied with these guys? They're awful. Ugh.
Especially, imagine this game if Ohio State loses to Penn State. They're 10-2.
Oh yeah.
Or sorry, 9-2. You have to beat the Michigan game to get to the playoff because you're not going to the Big Ten championship if you lose to Penn State.
Oh,
You're
no,
out.
no. If you lose to Penn State too, and then
Big
you
Ten
lose to
titles
Michigan,
over.
Ohio State's not making the playoff at 9-3.
No, they're done.
Not if you finish the season losing to a 5-6 Michigan team, buddy. That's
because your only ranked win would be Indiana, barring that they're still undefeated at that time. So at 10-2, you're getting it. I think we said at the beginning of the season.
Yeah. That's
any of these premier teams, Georgia, Ohio State, they're in.
Yep.
But if you're 9-3, you're not getting in, barring some type of absolute chaos throughout college football. You're not getting in.
No.
And then there's going to be some big time questions in Columbus. I know this game's weeks away, but it's going to be enticing to see where teams are into that last week.
We're talking about a completely fabricated scenario that's not even going to happen. But
Ohio State may be 11-1 at that point. Penn State or Michigan might not be able to score a touchdown. Ohio State beats them by 60. I don't know, but it's fun to think about because there's a lot of pressure on Ohio State this year.
Freshman quarterback Jaden Davis comes in, leading the Wolverines.
That's what they're saving him for, actually. They're saving him for the last 4 games because then you have to burn his red shirt.
Yeah, there you go. Maybe.
That's a philosophy I heard. So
yeah, I mean, you might as well at that point. It's like, well, we suck. So
apparently his parents don't want him playing this year. That was the thing.
That was also what I read on.
Oh my God, Pitt scored a tutty.
So much for us getting
signed, sealed, delivered. Jacob, I'm sorry, buddy. When you listen to this, I'm sorry. Comical let you down hard in this one.
I am not sorry. I had a substantial sum on this game, which is
Ryan bet a monthly mortgage on this game, Jacob. Damn it.
Oh my God, dude. If I bet a monthly mortgage on a football game and lost, I think Sam would murder me in my sleep.
I need a new podcast partner.
Yeah, you would. It would. I would be dead. Rightfully so. Cool, guys. That's all we have for tonight. It should be another fun week. Hopefully it's a fun week for me. It's going to be a fun week for Clinton because I don't think Ohio State loses, but maybe you'll get sad.
I'm going to hopefully enjoy the event, hanging out with our buddy Xavier. So looking forward to the game. I'll give you guys the lowdown. If, like I said, if Ryan's able, God forbid Ohio State loses Nebraska, I will go live for our reaction show at 10:30, 11 o'clock that night.
But my ass is going to be stapled to the couch. It's going to be stapled to the couch all weekend. I got nowhere to go.
All right. Well, I will give that to you guys, but it's not going to happen. So
it's not going to happen. All right, y'all. We'll see you Sunday night or maybe Saturday night. We're going to try to speak this into existence. For Clinton, I'm Ryan. Thanks for tuning in once again. We'll see you on the other side of week 9.
See ya.
Amazing.
You better have a mute button.